Welcome to Roland Garros Live with the team from Diary of a Professional Tennis Coach. For 15 days, we'll have all the latest from Paris. Come and slide in to play with us on the Terre Battue. Well, hello everyone. Welcome again to Roland Garros Live on Diary of a Professional Tennis Coach podcast. And my guest today, the one and only Michael Joyce, former coach, of course, of Maria Sharapova. They won several majors together, now coaching the US youngster Ashlyn Krueger, who, in my opinion, has got an extremely bright future. We're going to speak a lot about Ashlyn today, who was a winner in round one of Roland Garros. And we've also got my pal Vuk Brajovic. You've seen him on the podcast several times. He is, of course, a leading Serbian journalist. He knows everything about Novak Djokovic and more. He knows more about the tennis world than probably I have ever known in my life. So I'm delighted to have both Vuk and Mike on the podcast. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Great to be here. What a great company.
Mike, let's start with you. Had a good win today. We're going to start on the WTA side, even though a lot is going on the men's side, including what looks like it's going to be a big upset between João Fonseca and Hubie Hurkacz. I have to say, before I say anything more, that I've already decided that João Fonseca is going to be my son-in-law. I've already worked this out. My daughter is 16. This is not going to happen anytime soon. He's 18. And I was thinking about 10 years. I've met his parents. We get along well. So this isn't too weird, but well, it is a little bit weird. It can only get weirder from here. I'm sure Mike can help us out with that. Mike, just give us an idea of what happened today and how you think Ashlyn is playing, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, it feels good to get that first win, Grand Slam, clay. You have the last 6 weeks of all these clay court tournaments and the big tournaments, Madrid and Rome, but you kind of always looking forward to the slam, right? So I feel like Ashlyn, even last week in Strasbourg, she was already talking about the French Open and next week, and the draw came out. So Grand Slams, it's always that a little bit extra pressure. There's a lot of hoopla around it and the obligations the players have to do. So a lot of times just toughing out that first match and getting that first win under your belt is really, really good. And then she had a lot of challenges. Like last year, it was kind of rainy and last year she played 3 hours in the horrible rain and wet balls and served for the match 2 or 3 times and had match. So today she won 6-3, 6-4. It was pretty straightforward. It got a little dodgy at the end, but she pulled it out. So we're happy to get that first win for sure.
She beat Susan Lemens, who's a more than decent Dutch player, very solid. But Ashlyn Krueger, in my opinion anyway, Mike, I mean, you've got an absolute gem on your hands. She is tall, she's lean, she's fast. You can see the improvements that she has made over the last couple of years under your guidance. She can play on a clay court. She really can. She hits through the ball. She's, in my opinion, again, got major titles in her. The US women's side in particular looks very healthy. I'm sure you'd agree with that.
Yeah, we were actually, Ash and I were talking about the other day a little bit. For me, it's really interesting because I remember when I first came on the scene, American tennis kind of with Jessie, Pegula, it was, I guess, 12 years ago. After all those years with Maria, I didn't pay a ton of attention to American tennis, even though I was American because I was with Maria all those years. And then when I started working with Jessie, all of a sudden, she was just coming up and didn't have a ranking. And I know a lot of these girls that are especially Jessie's age, that she grew up playing with, Collins and Keys and Sloane Stevens. And so, there was a time when I remember when Jessie got to top 100 and she was the 7th or 8th American and she had just broken top 100. And now, we were counting the other day, I think there's 19 or 17 and then top 150. So, and the men's tennis is doing really well too. So, kudos to U.S. tennis the last 10 years. Obviously, we're, seeing the players now, but that's a good 10, 15 years of work to have so many good players coming up.
Yeah, Vuk, you know all about this. You've got lots of Serbian ATP players in particular, but at one point, the WTA side was very strong in Serbia as well. And it's not just something that happens overnight, is it? It's years and years in the making.
Exactly. And once again, kudos to Mike and Ashlyn. I wanted to add a bit of a peculiarity from the press conference of Mira Andreeva today. Actually, they were talking about her nutrition, and she seems to have problems in curtailing a selection of, let's say, unhealthy or unsavory food. So I don't know whether this is going to play into the match, which we're about to in the next
It's
round.
good to know. Let's offer her some more.
Yeah.
I'll buy her dessert tomorrow.
Yes, exactly.
Lunch and dinner.
Say that she has a hard time controlling the sweet tooth.
Listen, Ashlyn has the same.
People.
We have the same issues over here. So,
well, okay, then
young girls.
then to no avail. What can I say? But anyway, it was pretty interesting. True, Candy. Yes, we've had a very strong ladies' field, of course, going back to the years of Monica Seles. Before she switched citizenship. Of course, Jelena and Anna being the world number one, and then winning Fed Cup at that time. And but we do have, let's say, a selection of young up-and-coming women on tour, rather ladies. And of course, with Olga Danilovic doing pretty well, actually playing Danielle Collins tomorrow, I think. Second match. Let me just check. Or I may be wrong, but anyway, this is their second match in a row in the second round at Roland Garros, and the tables have turned a bit now. Olga is the one that is better ranked, and however, the match will be fierce. It'll be very, very highly contested, and we look forward to a great match. Of course, the problem with Olga this year is that she's running into Sabalenka in the third round, which one could have hoped for a better draw, but who knows? I mean, ladies tennis, as you guys were saying, is quite unpredictable. There are a lot of interesting twists and turns for the better of it, of course, and so let's see how that plays out.
Yeah, Olga Danilovic, your Serbian player, now well inside the top 40 in the rankings. She's going to be facing Danielle Collins, who's ranked 54, 1-1 in the head-to-head. Both matches, Vuk, have gone to third sets. One was 6-4 in the third. That was at French Open last year. One was 7-6 in the third. That was in Madrid last year. So that one is going to be very, very tight. Mike, talking of Danielle Collins, she wasn't going to be playing this year. She's back, and you just never know with Danielle, because all the journalists were saying, "Are you sure?" After she won back-to-back in Charleston and Miami last year, "Are you sure you're not going to come back?" Definitely not going to. Don't keep asking me. 2025, Danielle Collins is still playing. What's going on?
Well, the truthful answer from my point is I told Ashlyn there was no way she's stopping. I always said there's no way she's stopping. There's no way she's stopping. So for me, I wasn't the least bit surprised. Now, with that being said, I'm not saying that she was saying she's stopping. And I just felt like, a lot of times when you have really good results, and then she got to obviously got to top 10, a lot of times you gain those benefits, 6 months, a year later, because you get buys, or you get, maybe guarantees or exhibit. So I felt if she's stopping, she's leaving a lot of money on the table, which maybe, she was really thinking about doing that, but I'm not really that surprised she's coming back. Based on her schedule in the second half of last year, I think she probably did think she was going to stop, because she didn't play like that much, and I think she skipped Asia and stuff. But I feel like, it's hard. It's hard for players to stop even when they're struggling, because it's what they've done their whole life, and that a lot of people give some of these like older players that kind of hang on, like some people feel maybe they hang on too long, but I think if you weren't a player yourself, it's not that easy you've done something since you're probably 5-6 years old, and it's been your whole life. And obviously a lot of these players earn a lot of money, and they become almost bigger than tennis, but tennis is what they are at heart. So it's not that easy to kind of hang it up, right? So I think I actually feel too like she's like when she first started at the beginning of the year, I don't think she did that well, partly because I probably like she made a decision that she was going to come back after missing a lot at the end of last year. But now I feel like she's starting to like play good again, and she seems kind of hungry again, and her schedule seems a little bit more normal. So I think she's probably in a pretty good spot right now. Now it's going to be tough to work her way back to the top 10, but I mean, she's still a great player.
If anyone could do it, it's Danielle Collins.
Of course,
Vuk, talking about maybe people that are just kind of getting to maybe the end of their career. Stan Wawrinka, 40. Gael Monfils is playing right now. We don't know quite, do we, if we're going to see them play more Roland Garroses. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, quite true. And of course, we also have Richard Gasquet, who actually had a very good run in Monte Carlo, where we saw each other last, Candy. And he didn't mention it in his press conference because he won against his countryman Atman, very convincingly, actually. And he said, "Well, it's always pretty hard to get ready for what may be your last match and then win it, right?" And then, however, in Richard's case, it's the ultimate, let's say farewell, playing against Yannick Sinner in the next round, which is the right kind of setting for him to say au revoir from the Roland Garros crowd. Yes, so in that case, he's done really well for himself. But as you said, we have Monfils, we have Stan, who actually said that he doesn't plan to retire. He doesn't have any imminent plans of what he's going to do, where he's going to play next, and so on. He also said that he was pretty happy with the level of his game when things function well, and so on. So. Yes, very true. It's hard for them to walk away. In ladies tennis, we also had many other cases. We had Kim Clijsters coming back, was it twice? And of course, Mike knows all too well how it went with Maria, and possibly Serena would have liked for the latter part of her career to look a bit differently in terms of results and so on. So I don't know. It's also a bit it's a tough call. We're all creatures of habit. But it's also there's also many other things, and as Mike very correctly pointed out, there's also the marketing dollar, involved in a couple of other fringe benefits. So it's when you put these things together in a certain mosaic, it's hard to make the final call. But that also may be a relief. Actually, Candy, I thought you were going to mention Novak in that sense, but Novak, from what he's been saying the past 2 days here in Paris. No plans to retire. I would say, he did mention the LA Olympics in 2028. That may be a bit far-fetched, but he does sound like he's going to play.
Keep going, Novak.
Well, I'll tell him, Mike.
Play forever, man. Come on, this is our last one.
You're a big fan, Mike, aren't you, of Novak's?
I've always loved Novak. And it's funny because, that's also what the best, well, I guess you could say four, but Roger, Rafa, I think that's also what made it. And Novak, I think everybody had like a favorite, right? So everybody loved all three to an extent. Even if you didn't like one, you kind of had to have a soft spot, right? So I think, every player I've ever worked with, and I work with players for long times, right? So we're talking, Maria had her favorite, Jessie has her favorite, Ashlyn had her favorite, so I always was a Novak fan, and I always, from a long time, I always felt like he could end up being the best, and so now I'm just kind of in my glory of saying, yeah, he's the GOAT, right?
You're just reminding everyone that you said it first.
Yeah, and then there was all those years where he was kind of like the maverick, right? Like everybody put kind of Roger and Rafa on a pedestal, and he was kind of like, I'd love to always be like, yeah, Novak's gonna beat them both, so for me, and I don't really know him personally that well. However, the years, funny trivia question here actually, which is pretty crazy, but the year Maria won Australian Open was Novak's first Grand Slam, and I think that year it would have been 2008 if I'm correct, because Maria, and so that night when like Maria won, the next night after Novak won, we all kind of had dinner, and then Maria and him were kind of, pretty friendly for a while. So he was always really nice to me, and I liked him when he was 19, 20. So
Yeah, they were very
I
close back
never
then.
really, yeah.
Yeah,
So
very close.
I have like kind of deep connections to him a little bit, even though I'm not friendly with him or anything.
Yeah. They would
Vuk,
party actually
Novak
in the US
Djokovic
Open as well.
returning to. Sorry, Vuk, just Novak
Yes.
returning to the site, of course, of his Olympic Games glory. Last time we saw him on Philippe Chatrier, he was on the floor, essentially crying into the clay, wasn't he? He'd won Olympic gold in the singles for Serbia. Today, he beat Mackie McDonald in straight sets, no problems at all. Your thoughts on the match, because I know you watched it very intently.
Yeah, well, as I wrote to you in my in direct message, it seemed like slow train a coming. Pretty much, it was a match of low intensity in many ways, and Novak himself said in the Serbian part of the press conference, yeah, during such matches, things do appear in his mind which sometimes interfere with his focus, because it was quite a slow match. They did commit a lot of unforced errors, and first of all, I think the wrong tone was given by the organizers for not accepting or deciding in good time to apply the roof, because it was very windy, it was rainy, and just gave the wrong setting for this kind of a match, and I think wasn't appreciated by anybody, especially the crowd, which voiced their opposition to this decision quite vociferously. But Novak said that it was a good match to win. A triple 6-3 is definitely a good result. There are things which need to be corrected, of course, but I guess it's also important to win this kind of match after, let's say, an exuberant time in Geneva, winning the much coveted 100th title, and so on. So yeah, it's pretty much like a stabilizing victory, if we can call it that. And certainly good to be back, in this historic site, and of course, with the hindsight of this wonderful ceremony with which Rafa Nadal was given the goodbye. It was a very emotional couple of days here for Novak in Paris, and this is why, again, this kind of victory has all the more value.
I don't know if you heard when they walked on court, Andy Murray said to Novak, "Well, now you've got a proper coach. You're back to winning titles."
Yes. And Novak made a good point of that. It was charming. I mean, it just goes on to say that the two of them are good friends. They're buddies. They've known each other, played each other since the age of 12 onwards. So I think that whatever is to ensue in their relationship is going to be just fine.
Mike, given what you know about coaching and what you know about Novak, are you surprised that Novak and the Andy Murray thing didn't work out particularly well?
Not really. It's funny. I think probably the two most famous coaches he had were Agassi for a little bit and Murray, and both times he didn't really do that great. I think with Agassi was probably like the lowest point of his career. I remember him going out to a couple. Listen, somebody like him that's played as long as he has and had his, I think he needs a coach for different reasons than other players need coaches, right? I mean, coach, there's so many different parts in people's careers. So I think for him, he's probably his biggest thing he has to do is search for motivation. I mean, obviously he loves tennis, but he's got to, and then to certain tournaments are going to mean everything to him, and other tournaments. I mean, when he plays some of these tournaments, I mean, I was talking about this, like, actually Ashlyn asked me, like in Madrid, he was like warming up, and so she's like, how does he like get even motivated to play like a tournament like this? So I mean, but obviously he needs the matches and he needs to do that to even have a chance to do better things in the bigger tournaments. So I think a coach for him, has a lot of different meanings, and I'm sure Andy, Andy was fired up to do it, and I'm sure he still probably gives him advice. Yeah, I don't, he's just not his official coach, but I don't think yeah, I didn't put that much thought into it. I think it was a fun thing, and it was a lot of hoopla because of Andy. But I mean, I I I think it was a little bit blown out of proportion, like how much Andy was going to come in and help him, let's say, or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And
But it
you
made it
guys,
certainly exciting.
yeah,
Yeah, it was fun, and it was fun, and I mean, it. I think people like the big name coaches coming in at times. Obviously, um, over the last, that's been a big thing the last 10, 15, 20 years, maybe 10, 15 years. And but it's great for our sport, and it's and the same thing. A lot of these coaches, I mean, Andy's kind of like what I was saying before. I mean, Andy's such a competitor, and tennis was his whole life. And obviously, there's a lot of things. He's got a family and everything, but he couldn't stay away. He had to go down to Australia, right? Leave his. It's not like he needs the money. So tennis it keeps you out there for sure.
yeah.
Vuk, your thoughts on the Murray Djokovic?
Yeah. Well, I was just about to say that as if you guys were with us at the just finished press conference in Serbian, because we did talk about his team, and he said that the new structure of his team is let's say focused on analytics. This is Boris, the guy who has been with him throughout the past couple of years. He's more of like analyst coach. There is a certain software that they use to provide the analytic data, which they of course observe and act upon. Then having Dusan Vemic with him again, as Mike very precisely said, is more of a stabilizing factor. The ambience, the working atmosphere is there, and of course the proximity and the friendship that has existed among them for many years is what Novak really needs at this time. The other members of this cast are quite familiar as well. So this is really what Novak is all about when it comes to coaching at this moment. And he was there for a multitude of, I would say, intermediate reasons. And I don't think there's much to add to what Mike just mentioned. In regards to Madrid and Rome, actually, because that was pretty interesting. Novak never gave an explanation on why he skipped Rome, and he's been talking about that for the past 2 days here in Paris. He said that he wanted to be in Madrid because he hasn't been there for a while. I would say that one of the additional reasons was to take part in the Laureus ceremony as well. He's won the award as the world's best sportsman for five times, and having exited Madrid quickly, he said, I didn't want to go through the motions of having to get ready for Rome. However, I would say that it was a bit of a strategic move on his side because Rome was set to be the welcome back party for Yannick Sinner.
Yes.
Two of Novak's very close former team members are with Yannick now. So I think he also wanted to play the strategic guessing game. Mike, please feel free to add on to this, but this is just thoughts of a humble media media guy. But I would say that there is a bit of that as well in this very,
Sure.
let's say, dynamic play. And my guess was that there was something additional to those pronounced reasons, which sound a bit standard for Novak skipping Rome. And Geneva actually was very hospitable to Novak last year, this year as well. He did get 4 wins under his belt. However, what remains my concern is whether Novak will have the physical ability to last, 3 weeks in a row in such a high intensity of competition. Because in Geneva, he didn't beat just anybody. He beat very, very solid players and had a very tough time in the finals against Kubi. So, there you go.
Mike, you know one or two things about winning majors, and it is, isn't it, in the early stages of these 2-week-long tournaments, you've got to essentially win quite straightforwardly, particularly on the ATP side. If you're going 5 sets in rounds 1 and 2, it's going to be very hard to sustain that level.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I always get a kick out of I think the biggest hurdles that the WTA and women have to deal with in slams is all the extra physically physically for the men, and then the men, it's totally opposite. So like now all of a sudden you're throwing 3 out of 5. It's like a different sport. I mean, a 3 out of 5 set match is a totally, let alone a whole tournament, is a completely different sport than 2 out of 3 set match. And that's, so I think from a standpoint of like the women, sometimes in some ways it's good to play a lot going in, because maybe sometimes even like the week before, it's always that tough thing. Like, do you want to play a lot of matches? Like, let's say you win Strasbourg or Adelaide or something,
Yeah.
and then you're going straight into the slam. Like, it hurt us a little bit in Australia this year. Ashlyn did really good the first 2 tournaments, but she played something like 13 matches. And then, obviously it could have worked out really good because she went into Australia pretty confident and feeling really good, but we only had like a day or two to prepare there, and I think it hurt her a little bit in her match that she lost to Tom Jonovich. And then, and then you have the other. So somebody like Novak, to play that tournament, I think he knows to even have a chance to win a slam, he needs to have that like match count. Like it's just feeling the physical. I mean, you could be the greatest shape like ever and go play a match that like you haven't played an actual tournament match, let's say in a couple months, and you could be in unbelievable shape, and I guarantee you, no matter who you are, you finish that match, the next day you're like sore as hell, because
Yes.
all of a sudden you have the pressure, little things, right? So the only way and then somebody who's playing a lot, like all the time, they might be kind of tired, but their body's used to playing all the time, so they're not getting sore as much. It's so that, and there's that like calmness you get from playing a lot. So I think somebody like Novak, everything that he's doing throughout the years is targeting like the slams. And then I'll even go out on a limb and say he's probably targeting Wimbledon, and possibly like he might not even, from a physical standpoint. I mean, of course, somebody like Novak probably thinks he can win every tournament, but I bet you he has more confidence that he can win Wimbledon than the French Open. So playing a lot of matches here is probably going to help him. He's probably partially thinking it's going to help him for like Wimbledon and stuff, because also like he won the Olympics, but again, it was helped by being 2 out of 3 sets. It's like a totally different tournament,
Oh.
So I think he's got another slam or two in him. I know he does. And I trust he
Big
knows what he's
statement.
doing. Yes.
I love to hear that, and I'm sure Vuk would agree with you. In fact, we've spoken, haven't we, Vuk? And Monte Carlo, you were on our podcast last time, and you thought the same, that he's got at least one, if not two.
He does. He played good in Miami. I mean, he was back to playing good in Miami. I mean, yeah. Anything Novak does won't surprise me.
Yeah, well, I would agree with Mike. He definitely is a man on a mission, and the mission may include both Roland Garros and Wimbledon, which may turn out, as he said, for Roland Garros to be the precursor of the ultimate success in Wimbledon. He does need the matches. Well, okay, the clay and grass are distinctively different surfaces. However, for him to get into the groove, into the winning rhythm, is something which is needed at this time, especially with the hindsight of the season that he's been having, and actually I would say 2 seasons, pretty much after losing to Sinner in the finals of Davis Cup in Malaga. Novak hasn't been himself. And apart from the victory at the Olympics, however, winning the Olympics after, exiting Roland Garros as he did after the meniscus operation, after the Wimbledon campaign, is really a testament to the incredible abilities that Novak has. And I would say he's like a beast of emotions. Again, this conversation about his team and about the need to have this pristine winning atmosphere, the camaraderie and everything else is really has an incredibly strong meaning to him. And I would say that if he managed to win the Olympics in the way that he did last year, and to come back after so many trials and tribulations, so many hardships and things like that, and I would say that he's actually counting on this emotional boost to go far in Paris. and then of course to use it in case he may fail here to replicate this and go all the way at Wimbledon. Because let's be fair, 2 matches he lost against Alcaraz in the finals of Wimbledon. One, he was of course coming back from an injury. The other one he could have easily won. So in the meantime, 5 out of the last 5 matches played against Alcaraz, he lost just 1. So again, this equation may play out in the final rounds of Roland Garros. Zverev definitely has a stronger mind than Sasha. Then of course Jannik still not feeling as confident on clay as as the others, and then of course with Carlos does have a bit of an advantage in terms of mindset. So I think he's a very, very, as he says, he's one of the best students of the game, and he has a very strong mindset and plan when it comes to Roland Garros and Wimbledon. So we'll see. But I'm pretty optimistic that he does have at least one more slam, coming.
So you're watching Roland Garros live on Diary of a Professional Tennis Coach, and our experts do believe that Novak Djokovic, who won today against Mackenzie McDonald in 3 straight sets, does have another couple of majors in him. We shall see Novak beating Mackenzie McDonald 3-3-3. His first match on Philippe Chatrier since winning Olympic gold. Let's have a look, gentlemen, at a few of the other results. Grigor Dimitrov retired against Ethan Quinn. Ethan Quinn went to the University of Georgia. We had Manny Diaz, Mike, on the podcast yesterday, head coach of Georgia for 36 years. He's, of course, seen Ethan Quinn win NCAA title in his freshman year. But now Mike Dimitrov is retired in his last 4 majors. This was a thigh injury. And that is the problem, isn't it? As you age, these niggling, annoying injuries get in the way.
Yeah, I mean, we're actually pretty close with Ethan. Ethan and Ashlyn are the same age. So I met Ethan in the juniors when he was like 15 or 16. So we actually were watching that match, like when everything went down, because it was before Ashlyn's match. So we had like a lot of time. We were sitting there watching. And so Grigor was playing amazing, pretty much killing Ethan. I mean, he won the first set 6-2, and he was serving at 1-all, and we saw it happen. He like hit his serve, and he like kind of grabbed his hamstring, and then Ethan like shanked the return, so it was like 2-1, and then he took a medical time off, left the court, and then came back, and then the second, Ethan kind of could tell, like he almost looked like he was going to stop. I mean, he could barely move, but then it was like affecting Ethan. And so we actually left, and he lost the second set also. And then I saw, but to win a set, I mean, the way he was moving, it's sad because I said to Ethan yesterday when I saw him, I was like, and I love Grigor. I've known Grigor for you. I think he's amazing. But I was like kind of half joking. I was like, just try to keep him out there a long time. You never know, his back might go out, because it's happened. Like, I think I feel terrible, but but I'm sure I'm not the only one, because I read that he's not been able to finish his last 4 slam matches.
That's right.
And then obviously, like you said, at his age, and that's a really tough. I don't know if it's probably the same injury. I'm assuming it's somewhat, or at least they're kind of related to what the problems he's had. Yeah, because he seemed like he even kind of like knew. Like Grigor was talking to Jamie, like they kind of knew like what was going on, and that's not a good sign if you start getting chronic back issues or whatever he's having at this age. I mean, I think that's what makes the Novak and some of the other players, what besides how much they've accomplished and won, the longevity is incredible. And even Grigor, when you see him in full flight, when he's healthy, the way he moves and what kind of athlete he is at his age, it's pretty incredible. However, then you start to wonder, nobody really beats Father Time. So they can prolong as long as they can, and they're doing amazing at doing that. But obviously, when you start seeing some of these things, it's pretty scary for somebody like Grigor, of course.
There was an instance in England, actually, the Manchester United winger, you might remember him, Ryan Giggs, was known for driving fast cars, and he, as he got older, had these hamstring issues. And it turned out to be, it was because of the Ferraris and the Lamborghinis that he was driving, because he was so low and the way he was driving. So we know that Grigor loves his fast cars, loves his motorbikes, but maybe it's time to move to kind of a Ford Fiesta.
Yeah, that could be it. That could be it. Terrible.
Yeah,
that would be something, wouldn't it, if Grigor drives up to the Monte Carlo Masters next year in kind of an old Skoda.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that.
Just another few results. Adam Walton from Australia has won his first major match today. Cameron Norrie beat Daniil Medvedev. Vuk, did you see that? That was very, very exciting. Norrie up a couple of sets. Medvedev came roaring back, almost got the job done. I think he served for it, didn't he, at 5-4? But it's the Brit Norrie who won that match. So big upset on the men's side.
Yeah, it was crazy, and of course, good on Cam. Daniil, regrettably, if I say predictable, of course that wouldn't be nice. But he does have a love-hate relationship with clay, and never excelled at Roland Garros. Unbelievable. But he actually changed his strings during this match, and funny enough, he said haven't ever considered changing my strings since before 2023. Then it started working out for him, especially in Doha, for example. He changed his strings, beat Karen Khachanov in that match, and he was using the strings that he actually started using after the second set with Cam today. During practices in the run-up to Roland Garros, he said everybody was kicking my ass with these strings. And oddly enough, when they switched these strings today, the comeback occurred, but didn't go all the way. So Daniil is quite a character, and regrettably, him and clay don't mix too well. But he has managed to find a way to take it in stride. So pity, but not that unexpected. And of course, as I said, good on Cam, because he has a long way to come back, and good to see him play the final stage in Geneva as well. Give Novak quite a hard time, and again, let's see how far he can go here. But an interesting match, definitely. Yes.
That was a 4-hour match almost. Jack Draper was a set down to Bellucci of Italy, 1-4. I don't know if you saw Bellucci winning the set, but he hit an underarm serve. That was kind of chaotic, and I think the French crowd, Mike, you can tell us that they love that kind of stuff. They love Quentin Moutet, who arguably has won the points of the tournament this year. They love that kind of player with a bit of flair, don't they? Someone a bit extraordinary.
Yes, I was actually watching Moutet before I got on the call here. So yeah, he's so entertaining. Yeah, the French crowd is pretty. It's probably the most in some ways. I think it's one of the most energetic crowd. I mean, obviously you got the Brazilians and South America different, but probably of all the slams, I feel like the French crowd really get into it, and they appreciate a lot of that. The first time I came to the French Open, I was 16. I think I was 16 or 15. My first day in the grounds, I was playing juniors. I think I lost in qualifying of the juniors. The first day in the grounds, I got to watch Michael Chang beat Lendl.
Yes,
when he hit the underhand serve. That was my first time at Roland Garros, sitting in the crowd watching that. And I remember the crowd whistling and going nuts and getting after Lendl, and being an American kid, the first time outside the U.S. and seeing that, I was like, wow, right? So it's kind of the same now. So they love that the controversy or flair, whistling and screaming. It's fun though. You have to embrace it.
Yeah.
And someone who is embracing things is João Fonseca. We spoke a little bit about him at the head of this Roland Garros Live Day 3. He has just beaten Vuk Hubie Hurkacz, who's been playing pretty well recently in 3 straight sets. What do you make of this Brazilian wonder kid?
Well, first of all, I all kudos to Fonseca, but I would say that the loss in the Geneva finals has also contributed to this with Hubie. Very, very nice guy, also very emotional, as we all know. And it was a bit of a disappointing end to that campaign for him. Of course, he's still coming back from injury, still has his knee strapped, and I guess there's always the issue of self-confidence and concerns of whether the injury can impede the rest of his performance during the rest of the season. So I didn't think that Hubi came to this match with the right mindset, which is quite understandable. But again, congrats to Fonseca. He is really the up and coming star. Very exciting. He produces a lot of flair, gives a lot of positive emotions to the game. I love the diversity, love the versatility. The physical performances are also great. Of course, the mindset still needs to develop a bit. We did see him, have a bit of a downturn during the part of the clay season, but in South America, if I'm not mistaken, and then also for a couple of weeks afterwards. But still, lovely to have the kid, coming from that part of the world, from Brazil, to promote the tennis, to drive the audiences towards the game. Really amazing, and I'm really interested in seeing how far we can go. I'm taking a look at the draw here, and it's going to be quite a star-studded event to see him face off Draper, because he is playing against Herbert, who's has produced a miracle going into the second round this year as well. So let's see how that goes. Also, Draper playing Guy Monfils possibly is going to be a great match. But again, what we're looking at here is the Fonseca versus Draper face-off. So wonderful to participate. Yes, totally.
We've got some comments from viewers watching. Matthew D'Souza, who was watching on the opening day. Hi, Matthew, again. He says Hurkacz looked like the stuffing had been completely knocked out of him after that Geneva final. That's what you were saying, Vuk. And he also, Matthew added, can't believe Felix lost. Felix Auger-Aliassime lost from 2 sets up again. Naldi has beaten the Canadian, and he sets up a match against Fabio Cobolli, who I have to say is my dark horse on the ATP side. I think Cobolli is playing outstanding tennis, and he really believes in himself. He's just won Hamburg. Jake Davis is a big fan of yours, Mike. He says, oh, wow, Mike, one of my favorite coaches, loved his work with Johanna Konta. And Matthew also mentioned conditions, wet and cold. This surely favors some players and disadvantages others. Mike, can you explain how cold and wet on clay is very different from hot and dry?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty and the curse of clay. It changes very, very fast. Obviously, I don't want to say live because it's not grass, but it's a surface that takes to, once it's raining a lot or there's a lot of water, it gets very muddy. Yes. So when it's like that, the ball tends to hit the court and kind of sit up and kind of get kind of stuck, and so. And then opposite, when it's really hot and dry, that's usually when the ball kind of skids through the dirt or clay a lot more. So, I mean, I would say the French Open, of all of the clay court tournaments, probably it's talked about the most because it's a Grand Slam, but it probably is the most even playing of all of the courts, partly because of the covers. The courts are very, there's not a ton of clay on them. It plays it's about as good a clay court as you're going to see. Roland Garros, the French Open. I mean, Rome, Madrid was pretty good as well, but Rome, there's rocks in the court, bad bounces, it gets really heavy. I mean, the Rome courts have been actually, Ashlyn, was funny, and this is interesting for the viewers. So they had 2 new courts in Rome this year, kind of they were almost in the football stadium. And right. Ashlyn played her first round on one of those 2 courts, and she said it was unbelievably great clay court. There was no bad bounces. The court was pristine, and you could look at it and say it's beautiful. And then the stadium court at Rome was terrible bounces. Did you see Sabalenka go to hit that return? Yes. It went over. And we practiced with Keys a couple days before the tournament, and it was where Ashlyn was like, man, they got to do something about this court. Like, it's so bad. So I think, you know, that's also why I think it's a good surface for juniors to grow up on and stuff, because you have to be really aware of the conditions, and, you know, clay makes you think a little bit more. You can't just win every point, you know, overpowering the plates, you know, so there's a lot of thought, process that goes into a lot of preparation. Sometimes when it's heavy and cold, you can string your rackets a little looser to get a little bit more, you know, pop on the ball or spin. So, I mean, all of those things are taken into consideration before going out on the court, and you got to be prepared for anything. I remember years with Maria out here where she would uh, be hot. It would be like hot, you know, dry. She's blowing some girl off the court, and then it starts raining, and you come out 5 hours later, and you're playing like in the mud, and it's cold, and it's like a totally different match. So you have to be able to adjust to those conditions, and yeah, it's what makes it fun.
Yeah, absolutely. You're watching Roland Garros Live. Thank you to everyone who's sending in comments on our YouTube page, Diary of a Professional Tennis Coach, DOA PTC. Let's swing round to the WTA side. Now, we've spoken about the men's matches. We've had wins for Mira Andreeva against Christina Buxa. Hailey Baptiste beat Haddad Meyer, who did really well in Strasbourg. Came into that tournament on 3 wins, now has 6, Haddad Meyer. She beat Clara Towson from 2 match points down, eventually ran out of steam against Elena Rybakina, having had an early break in the 3rd set against Rybakina, who went on to win the title. Now Hibino won the all-Japanese matchup. Marketa Vondrousova is back. She won today, 4-4. It's good to see her. Victoria Azarenka beat Yanina Vick, my love and love. That was her first double bagel in almost 17 years for Azarenka. Sophia Kenin, a little bit of a dark horse at the moment, beat Varvara Gracheva, France's number 1, 3-1. Kalinina had a win. And there were some other good ones there. Coco Gauff, though, is the one I want to get to next, gentlemen. She's beaten Olivia Gadecki, the Australian, 2-2. No surprise. What was a surprise, Mike and Vuk, is that she walked onto the court, opened her racket bag, and there was nothing to see. She had forgotten her rackets. And we've got a quote here. I'm going to put it up. I'll read it out as well for anyone who's going to be listening to this and not watching. Coco said, honestly, I thought they put the rackets in the bag, and my side court bag is filled with drinks and everything. She went on to say, it felt like I had enough weight. Then I got on court. I opened the first zipper. I was like, okay, no rackets. The second zipper, oh my God, I went on court with no rackets. So this is my question to you, Mike. I just think this is hilarious. Coco Gauff has someone, and she mentioned Jean-Christophe Farrell, who's one of her coaches. He puts the rackets in her bag after getting them from the stringer. I thought that players are professional enough that they're checking all their equipment before they walk on court. Mike, firstly, your thoughts?
Well, what I find even funnier than all, because first of all, I don't know how you can possibly do that. I will say, reading like what you just said, her comments, it makes a little bit more sense that the drinks were in the bag, because I remember when Tiafoe did it in Indian Wells, all I kept thinking was, how can you not feel that there's no rackets in the bag? You know, these players take anywhere from 5 to 8 rackets. So, you know, it's pretty heavy. What's funny is the players with the biggest teams are the ones that aren't taking rackets on the court. You know, you got Tiafoe with Dave and Jordy, and I mean, the 7 other people with them, and then you got Coco. What, she has 4 or 5 coaches or parent. I mean, like 9 people, and they're forgetting rackets. So maybe it's too many chefs in the kitchen or something. But I don't know how that's possible. I honestly, that's one. The shoes I can understand. Maria used to forget her shoes a lot. Obviously, she wouldn't like forget them on court. But sometimes you go to the site and she'd be like, oh, I left the shoes at the hotel, or, you know, but rackets on the court for the match, I don't know. I'll pick up Ashlyn's rackets, and then before the match, I mean, we're sitting there with the rackets, and then she has them in the bag. Ashlyn would definitely never go on court without rackets. I can guarantee you that, but everybody's different, I guess.
Next time she forgets her rackets, we're going to come straight to you, Mike. Vuk, have you ever seen anything like this before?
Well, actually, let me just add to this story because I've checked out what Coco was saying at the press conference, and she may have been too consumed with her new styling. She appeared on court with a new leather jacket from New Balance, and of course,
Ah,
for her it was more of a fashion moment than I guess a tennis moment. But this sounds incredible. I think that each one of the members of her team should get one racket, be in charge of one racket, and then of course bring it to the match. It's just yeah, unbelievable. But then again, going back to what Novak said, there's so many things, flying around people's heads, before the match, after practice, whatnot. So it's just, like the lives of contemporary tennis players are quite complex. This is a funny one, I must say.
Apparently, we heard in Australia that Novak has a list of about 60 things that he has to accomplish on match day. This was kind of the words coming through the grapevine. So 60 things is a lot, but you think rackets is kind of high on the list. I mean, that's just my opinion. But Coco did win. They had a little chuckle, didn't they? Her and Olivia Gadecki. And Coco, Mike, playing really well. A Madrid and Rome finalist. She's been a finalist here in Roland Garros. She's probably, apart from, of course, your player, Ashlyn Krueger, got to have the best chance on the US women's side of winning.
yeah, for sure. I mean, just based on those, obviously those couple tournaments on clay. I mean, Coco always has a chance, right? She's right.
Yes.
I mean, that's the beauty of the women's tennis right now. I don't really, for many years, it was like the men's game was kind of like open, and I mean, obviously you had the main guys, but you felt like women for the years of Serena. I mean, you can go down the list. Where there's only usually like a couple players that could win. Now I feel like there's probably 20 or 30 ladies that could win the tournament. So, and I think most tournaments, that's how the players are feeling. So, Swiatek obviously is the one who's played the best here over the years. And I think if she's in full flight, she's the one to beat just because her ranking dropped a little bit. But also I think the players are feeling because of how, her year is gone, and then the couple upsets on clay. I feel like, the players feel now like, she's beatable too. So, yeah, I think it's, Coco's a really tough out. I mean, she's, really tough to beat, even when, she goes through people. Sometimes she'll, like all players, she'll struggle a little bit here and there, but then she pops up, wins the championship or wins Beijing or has, big results. So she's definitely right up there, top five. I know Jessie, Jessie struggled a little bit the last couple of weeks, but she's had a great year. I think she has like the most wins or close to it. Pagula, obviously, and, she's right up there. I mean, there's obviously a lot of players that feel like they can do it. So, I think it makes it fun.
Yeah, it certainly does. They're hunting in packs, the US women, as we discussed a little earlier. Now let's get on to your player, Ashlyn Krueger. We said she had a win over Lamens of the Netherlands today. She's going to face Mira Andreeva. It's not the best draw for Mira, though, because Ashlyn on her day is one of those players that can really worry everybody. But Mira Andreeva is now 18, Vuk. She is an old woman at this point. We've been speaking about her for many, many years, haven't we? And she is looking like a major contender very, very soon. Am I overestimating that, or do you think that's about fair?
Well, I mean, despite all the successes, they are still at a very early age, and there is a learning curve that should be applied, when considering, how far and how deep they can go in Grand Slams. She does seem to have the right kind of support around her, and the motivation is there. Also, she has, I think, the right idols to look up to. Now, let's see. I mean, there are a lot of elements when it comes to success in the ladies' game, and of course, as we were saying, so many things can just turn around in a single match. So I think that she still has a number of items to check off if we're to consider her as a top 10 player in the WTA. But definitely one of the best talents out there, and of course capable of producing some incredible tennis. However, to sustain that level, to be persistent, to be consistent, let's see her how she does in 2025. I would,
Yeah.
I would, I'm all for her, but still needs to be proven.
Yeah, long way to go. Just other results. Maria Sakkari surprisingly went down. She's working with Coach Tom Hill again, but she lost to Elsa Jacquemot of France. Pegula, we were speaking about her earlier. She beat Anka Todoni, who's a decent Romanian 2-4. So that's a good win for Pegula. Of course, had the loss of her beloved dog the other day and lost in her opening round of Strasbourg, not surprisingly, because as Mike knows more than anyone, Pegula is a huge animal lover. And those things really, really hurt. Magdalena Freck has beaten Ons Jabeur 7-6, 6-love, Mike, which is a bit of a worrying scoreline. Ons is so good for tennis, but the results just have not come, and she's getting injured, and it looks unlikely to me, and I hate to say that she's going to fulfill her ambition of winning a major, having been to finals. What do you think about Ons Jabeur, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, it's similar like Dimitrov, right? Like in some ways. I mean, she's getting hurt a lot. What people don't realize too, it's like word gets around the locker room, and obviously everybody sees what everybody's doing. They see, I mean, obviously everybody knows what a great player she is, and it wasn't that long ago she was fighting for majors. But then when you see her this year, I mean, it's similar, I hate to say it, like Badosa. I mean, what a great player, and she made such a great comeback. She played a good match the other day. But when these players are getting injured a lot, and then it's going on for weeks and months, or they'll pop in play, for sure it's worrisome. I mean, I think that's half the battle of being a good player, and having a high ranking, is being able to play a whole year and play. Everybody's going to have little things here and there, but injuries are by far the most important thing in our sport. If you're injured and you can't play, you can't get momentum, you're taking time off, you're always like fighting uphill battles. So when you see that, I'm not that close with Owens, like what she's doing exactly, but I do know, like this year in a lot of tournaments, she's been like, you see her either like that, like you said, 6-love set, or she pulls out of a match, or she doesn't play somewhere. So, and then it's tougher on these girls too, is when their rankings start to drop, because Ashlyn, actually, we got a little unlucky in Madrid and Rome, because both tournaments, Ashlyn was one spot from being seeded. And in those tournaments, like, it's a big difference being seeded, because, I mean, obviously you're getting a bye, so you don't even have to play a first round. But more importantly, you're playing the winner of two unseeded players, then, right away in the second round. So, but the first seed you're going to play is third round, right? So if you're not seeded, you're playing a match to play a seed for sure, top 32. So for somebody like Ons, even like we talked about Collins, some of these, or Sakari, like these girls who for maybe 10 years have had buys, and, better, even maybe an opportunity to have an easy match or two before, they find their footing in the tournament. Now they're coming in and having to play a top player first or second round all the time, which it's kind of what's happening to Osaka. I actually think Osaka's playing a lot better than, people, that general public even know. I mean, Badosa, her, that could be a final of a Grand Slam, but then everybody just thinks she just lost first round again, and then they start saying she's lost first round, for last 7, whatever, and then it just starts to like snowball and cycle. But I actually think Osaka is playing pretty good, and I think she's gonna, she's always really dangerous, and I think she'll, have a decent draw somewhere and get some momentum, and she'll probably be top 10 again eventually. But right now, it's like she's having bad draws. I mean, Ashton's had bad draws in Grand Slams. I mean, she's been a main draw for 2 years, and, she won 2 rounds in US Open, but then like winning today. But like she's played a seed first round the slam like 4 or 5 times in this last 2 years. You know, she played. So that has a lot to do with it. Obviously, the draws and stuff. So being seeded and ranking higher is going to help with that kind of stuff. So Owens has a long road ahead of her, like a lot of those girls. Sakari as well. You know, it's not going to be easy for them to get back.
It's a rather slippery slope, isn't it? In other results, Louis Bosson, the woman accused of being smelly, I don't know if you remember that, by
I remember
Great
seeing
Britain's
that.
Harriet Dart, has beaten Elisa Mertens in 3. Anne Lee is on the winning run. She beat Maria Lord Carle of Argentina. Yulia Putintseva had a win today. And Marie Boskova, who was injured, it looked bad actually in Strasbourg, has beaten Anna Kalinskaya. Karolina Mukova, surprisingly, another one who's been very injured, is down a set to Alicia Parks, who hasn't had a tremendous amount of success this year. Gentlemen, let's turn our attention now to tomorrow. And on the WTA side, Aryna Sabalenka is going to face Jill Teichmann. Elena Rybakina, winner of Strasbourg, is going to face Eva Jovic. Jovic's coach, Tom Gutteridge, was actually on the podcast recently, and I'm hoping he's going to be on Roland Garros Live soon. That's going to be a rematch of the Australian Open affair. Rybakina lost just 3 games to Jovic. Jovic is still 17. Diana Schneider's going to face Diana Yastremska. That's going to be an interesting battle. But the one that I think everybody's looking forward to, Mike, let's start with you, is Raducanu versus Swiatek. It was very one-sided in Australia. Has Emma got any chance?
Yeah, I think she has a chance. I think she has a chance partly because of what I was saying before. I think Iga's has a little like chink in her armor, or they think she does. There's something just not like she might find at this tournament because it's probably not very far off. But you know, even like her last match, she's throwing in like these kind of ugly games and starts looking like she's panicking a little bit. You know, so and then on the other end, Emma's been winning some matches. You know, I think obviously needs like all players, she needs to have some confidence, get some wins under her, but since she's doing that, so I think it will be a lot more competitive than it was in Australia. But I still don't know if she's got, and I'm sure Emma plays okay on clay, but it's probably not her favorite either. Right. So I'd like her chances a little better at Wimbledon than I would center court at French Open. But I think it will be a little bit more competitive than before.
And Vuk, on the men's side, just looking ahead, Lorenzo Musetti's got to be a second round here. He's facing Daniel Galan. We've got Francisco Cerundolo against Hamad Medjedovic. What do you think about Medjedovic, who won Next Gen a couple of years ago, has since got injured, but he's got a massive game, isn't he? He's been mentored by Novak. He's been helped financially by Novak. Are you thinking that Medjedovic at some point is going to really go deep in a major?
Well, if he does that, Roland Garros could be the one. I'm looking at the draw actually, and it's not Francisco. It's
Juan Manuel.
Yes, Juan Manuel, and that's a great shocker actually for Francisco to exit in the first round was a surprise for all of us. But Medjedovic has actually played very well against the Pole Martijak. And the draw is quite open for him, I must say. Also, the fact that Taylor Fritz has dropped out is very beneficial to him. So, you know, we Serbs are prone to some, to some wild dreams and guesses. In that sense, you know, there is a possibility if Hamad holds it together, that he could actually end up in the quarters, which would be amazing, really. But you know, if we just take in consideration the essence of tennis, if he manages to show consistency, especially in the next match, I think that he could go far. And this could, we're talking about a player who has won the Next Gen in Jeddah convincingly when he was, I think, Candy, correct me if I'm wrong, but the alternate. Right. Yep. And definitely incredible serve, has a very, very effective 1-2. I think that, you know, it could be a breakthrough moment for him. However, he has not been that consistent as of late. So, you know, he may actually fail on in the next round. But yeah, a very interesting set of matches tomorrow, and yeah, it's a pity that a couple of Serbs, which also had a good opportunity to go further this year, have not capitalized on the opportunity. However, we do still have Kecmanovic, who's done pretty well in the first match against Baez, and let's see. It's a very interesting field.
Other matches to look forward to: Emilio Nava will play Holger Rune. Francis Tiafoe is going to be playing Carreño Busta. Jensen Brooksby against Korda, an all-USA battle there. And Tommy Paul is going to take on Marton Fucsovic. Carlos Alcaraz, Mike, is playing tomorrow against Fabian Marozsan. A few years ago, of course, Marozsan from Hungary beat Carlos, didn't he? I think it was on the Rome clay, if I'm not mistaken. And Marozsan has a big game, but I just wondered your thoughts on who's going to win the men's. Is it going to be Alcaraz again? He, of course, won last year, didn't he? He won the natural surfaces. He did the Channel double, winning the French and Wimbledon. Yannick Sinner took the 2 hard court majors. But I'd love to know if you think they're going to meet in the final this year, perhaps.
Well, I'm glad I get to put this out in the universe, because I was talking about this today. Every year I pick Casper Ruud. Okay. Every year, and he always, well, no, I won't say always, but I think he's been to 2 finals.
He has.
And so, and now he won Madrid this year. So, and I don't know why, but I always feel like I've seen him play here at the French a couple times, like on TV, and like every time I watch him, he's always like killing somebody. I think last year I watched him beat Fritz, and then one year he chopped somebody up. So I like, but I never watch him anywhere else. So I'm going to go with my Casper Ruud pick.
Okay.
But obviously, Sinner, Alcaraz, it's like, I mean, I don't feel like, I could be wrong. I don't feel like Sinner looks that sharp. I know he played a couple good matches in Rome. I think, 2 months, missing 2, 3, he basically missed two big tournaments, Indian Wells and Miami, but that wasn't very much time off. So, players can take 2-3 months off, before Australia, and he can come in and he won Australia. So I don't think that time was that much. I think it's similar to what you said. I don't actually think he's as good on clay as he is on like hard court, possibly grass. So it'll probably take him a while to get really good on grass, because I think grass is a little bit of a surface you have to learn how to play on it, but he'll end up being really good on grass, I'm sure too. But you know what I'm saying? I think the clay. So with that being said, I probably got to favor Alcaraz just because he won it last year, but I'm going with Casper Ruud.
All right. I love this. Casper Ruud. Yeah, we just checked
Novak,
the dates.
Or Novak. Yeah.
Or Novak. There we go.
Yeah.
Any others to add? You're going to go through the list. 103 people later. And Vuk. So we've had Mike's prediction. What's your prediction?
Well, I wouldn't be the Serbian patriot that I am if I were to dismiss Novak. I think that in case Novak has a good run first week, if he wins all of his matches without dropping a set, I think he's a very, very strong contender, and I think that's going to be felt in the locker room as well. Let's see what happens with Sasha Zverev. Of course, he does have a lot to prove to himself. He was also talking about it today in the press conference. He said, when I'm on my high, it's quite high, but when I'm having a bad day, it's much lower than my contemporaries or the guys in the top 10. So let's see what Sasha does. In case Sasha exits earlier on, it's going to be great help to Novak, especially now that Medvedev is also out of the picture. And then it's going to be much easier playing field for Novak in case this happens. However, as I was saying, and as many people say, it's still very much Novak's call when it comes to big matches, and of course, pending that he's healthy. This is where my biggest concern lies, and in regards to playing 3 weeks in a row. But let's see. Otherwise, it will be an incredible final with the Sinner and Alcaraz. them having shared the last 5 Grand Slams is unprecedented for a very, very long time. In any case, I do not see anybody else. And kudos to Mike for mentioning Casper. Really, somebody who is well deserved to go all the way, especially Roland Garros. It'd be a lovely story, but I would. Casper has also been mentioning some psychological issues as of late and so on. Does look much better in that regard. It would be a wonderful story, but I would pick one of these, one of them, like Alcaraz, Sinner, or Novak, to go all the way.
Or Novak. All right, I like that. And Mike, let's go to the WTA side now. If you had to put your beautiful house and everything you own, all your possessions, on the WTA winner, who would you go for?
Swiatek.
Okay.
Until she proves that she can't, until somebody can beat her here. I mean, obviously, like I said before, it's there's a little bit of hope compared to years past. I think last year she won Madrid, Rome, comes in here. I think the year before she might have done the same, or final one, and so she's been pretty dominant on clay the last 4 or 5 years. So until she's beaten here,
You're not worried that she hasn't won a title this year?
Well, that's I mean, I am. I am. I mean, that the fact that she hasn't really, I don't think she's won a title since she won the French last year, if I'm not mistaken. So, and I'm not rooting for her. But I have my own horse to root for. But yeah, if you're saying I got to put all my possessions on it, she's the one, right? Until she's beaten. I don't, or she plays Ostapenko, one of the two.
She's actually in the same quarter, isn't she?
Yeah. Is she? So
6-0 for
I'm
Yelena.
more worried. I think there's a better chance Ostapenko could lose before playing her. And she's probably hoping for it, to be honest.
I think Iga will be sticking pins and all her team into a Yelena Ostapenko doll right now.
Right. It's, I mean, just because of the surface, it's the same Casper route. I mean, clay's the one surface that really, you could, the specialists on, right? That's why we saw Nadal. I mean, grass, obviously certain game styles that, people don't play as well maybe on grass, but it's not grass is a lot like hard court now, more than when we played on grass, right? But clay, if you're a really good clay courter like Henin was all those years, or Swiatek, it's a good advantage to have, that's for sure. And there's not a ton of women that I would put in like, oh, these are great clay court players, but she's obviously one of them, right? So
she certainly is.
We'll see. Yeah.
No, I think that's a good call. And Vuk, would you put your worldly possessions, including that beautiful Lamborghini of yours, on Iga?
Well, I think Mike has a very strong point. Also, Iga moves well on clay, which is very important. And when you compare, for example, her to Emma Raducanu, the advantage is clearly there. However, I think the player that needs to prove the most at this Roland Garros is Aryna Sabalenka, being world number one, but never having like the confirmation of greatness on clay. However, yes, let's see what happens. As we were saying, yes, Rybakina is to play Ostapenko, and then the better of them is, heading on Swiatek's way. I wouldn't also dismiss Paolini and Qinwen Zheng from China, messing things up there in a considerable way. Roland Garros has always had this, this flair, or this, precious little surprises in the making. And I look forward to that happening again, to another Paolini like last year. She played both singles and doubles and things. Let's see what happens. But Swiatek, actually, I was a bit surprised to see her very negative at the draw ceremony, as opposed to Alcaraz, who was all smiles and everything else. I think she's hurting. And I think that also the suspension and the way that this whole issue of her suspension was treated in the locker room and in the tennis scene also affected her.
Okay.
Let's see. I would love for her to come back at Roland Garros. It would be good for tennis, but I think it's a bit of an uphill battle for her, both internally and externally.
All right. We've got Paulini, by the way, playing Ayla Tomjanovic, who beat Maya Joint, who'd just flown in from Rabat, won singles and doubles. I spoke a little bit with Maya Joint's coach, Chris Marnie, and apparently she slept till 11:30 this morning, Maya Joint. He just said, don't put your alarm on, just wake up when you can. And she was absolutely knackered, as we say in Great Britain. Zhang Qinwen is also in action. She's going to be taking on the Colombian Emiliano Arango. All right, well, that's a wrap of everything that's happened this Tuesday, and we've focused our attention also on the big matches of Wednesday. Michael Joyce, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you back on the podcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And Vuk Brajovic, Serbian journalist, wonderful again. Thank you so much for your time.
Always an honor.
And thank you to all of you watching Roland Garros Live. We'll do it all again in about 24 hours' time. There's going to be some great more matchups at the French Open, the Clay Court Grand Slam. My thanks to Mike and Vuk, and see you very soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for watching Diary of a Professional Tennis Coach. Please like, subscribe, and share. And we'll be back soon with another great episode.